Oh, you called me an icon. Thank you.
You're welcome. Hello and welcome to the Part-Time Gamers, the gaming podcast for people with full-time lives. I'm Cyranex, clocking in with my good friend, That One Weirdo.
Happy St. Patty's Day, everybody. Make sure you watch Boondock Saints and eat a lot of Lucky Charms.
I forgot that was even today. Shows you how much I actually look at calendars.
It's over my head because I don't drink anymore. And it's literally like, and I'm more like now, especially like certain things I don't do anymore. And then I stop and I kind of like observe in such a different way. And I still see all these people, kind of leaning into this culture. And it's like, this is just Cinco de Mayo for gingers and drunks. Like, what is this?
Yeah, I mean, it's just an excuse to drink. It really is. That's about it. I mean, I'm the kind of person that I don't need an excuse to drink. I'll just drink when I want. So yeah.
I just get a couple baked potatoes. I'm like, oh, look at me.
Yeah.
No famine here.
Yeah, I honestly didn't even know it was today. So
yeah,
I didn't prepare anything. I'm wearing a gray hoodie. And yeah, I don't have any green on me at all, and I don't really care. Yeah,
I'm okay. I'm fine.
Although I do want Lucky Charms now, so thanks for that.
Of course you do. Did you know that they actually make a so it's like the equivalent of like a Rice Krispie square, but they have them with Lucky Charms marshmallow? Yes.
I might have seen that. I might have seen that before, but yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh. And don't watch the Leprechaun movies. I don't understand how that ever became like a franchise, because even the first one is funny because if I remember correctly, it was Jennifer Aniston's first role in a movie.
Really?
Yeah, that's before she had the bob haircut and she still had her old nose in this, and so.
Yeah, I would concur that with that assessment. Yeah, just no.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they made the second and however many other ones after. I don't know how many there are, but maybe they made more after the first one, trying to fix it, and say, "Don't worry, the next one will be better," and it probably never was.
They're so. I mean, I can't help but to look at like that, and then now people are freaking out because it's like, oh well, they're making Winnie the Pooh horror movies because now the rights are
yeah, they're
what do they call them?
Oh, public, not public
domain.
Access. Yes, public domain.
Yeah, and they have that. And it's like, no, don't you understand? If it's cheap enough, if it's wacky enough, and if it's something where you can't help, it's almost like me and candy. Like, I know this isn't going to go well, but I can't help myself.
Yeah.
It was the same thing with the Leprechaun movies because there's like, I want to say there's somewhere between like 6 and 8 of them, and one of those even includes the reboot. Yes, this was an IP where they thought, people want us to do that again, but like now. Exactly.
No.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. All right. All that to say, happy St. Patrick's Day. We're recording. Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Listen to some Flogging Molly and call it good.
All right. Let's go ahead and get into our icebreaker.
Nice of you to drop by.
Never heard that one before.
So I actually did something somewhat smart, I think, and picked out a question ahead of time instead of waiting until the last minute and realizing I didn't have one. So I thought this one was actually kind of interesting. What is the silliest thing you are emotionally attached to? And I have an answer right off the top of my head. If you need time, but yeah.
Oh no! See, I could actually. So I read it beforehand.
Yeah.
And because I'm me, and because I've missed doing this, my mind literally had like one of those explosions where it was like, whoa. Like, there's just so much my mind can kind of, I mean, I could literally, for an hour, we won't, go through a list of, like, how I took in this question. No, please go first.
So there, you can actually, you might be able to see him on the stream actually. So right underneath my Iron Man head, like right above where my microphone is, there are 3 smooth rocks on my shelf.
Right.
Oh, those ones I actually have a little bit of emotional attachment to. Uh, like a lot of the stuff on my shelf I don't really care about honestly, but except those ones. And there's nothing special about them. They're just rocks. But
Right.
the reason I have emotional attachment to them is because there's this one specific friend from high school who I was really close to for a while, and oh, she wasn't quite girlfriend status, but we were really close friends. And shortly after we both graduated from high school, she she had her dad was doing some kind of taxidermy thing up north in Michigan, trying to get something from one of the lakes, and we took a trip out there. And something that I always do whenever I go to any large body of water is I'll try to go near the shore if I can find some good rocks to skip them on the lake. I do that pretty much everywhere, and I did that at this lake as well. Found these really good stones, threw a couple of them in the lake, tried to skip them as well as I could, and kept these ones. And the reason why these ones specifically have so much attachment is because that was one of the last trips that I really got to spend time with her. And just nothing drastic or anything like that. We both got older. We both, became adults. And one of the things that happens when you become adult is you just don't have as much time to spend with other people. And, this was, I think the last time I saw her was probably shortly after that trip. Oh, and that was like 15 years ago. Oh,
Wow.
so I still have some really fond memories of her, of spending time with her in high school and everything, because we were both drama kids. So we did a bunch of the plays and stuff for drama class, drama club, all that jazz, and just had some really fun times with her, but just kind of fallen out of contact. So it's one of the reasons why I keep those rocks, is to remind me of the good times I had with her. Silly, but yeah.
No, it's not. It's not
Well,
silly. See, I
the
was actually
reason,
going to go all cynical, and then you just made the Grinch's heart grow
well,
3 sizes that
yeah,
day.
the reason why I'm attached to them is not silly, but the fact that they're just literally rocks.
Yes.
That's the silly part.
Yeah, but I think that's the beauty of. I mean, I'm a firm believer that we now live in an age where, one of my favorite comedy routines of all time is George Carlin and A Place for My Stuff, where
Yeah.
the whole point of kind of the bit is, that's all that is to the secret of life. You get stuff. And you have to buy a house to put your stuff in. And then when you buy too much stuff, you got to go get a bigger house. And have you ever noticed that when it's someone else's stuff, it's crap, but it's your stuff, it's stuff? Like,
Yeah.
just kind of mocking the whole concept of having so much that we have an attachment to, and it's not necessarily like it's all things. Like, we have an assortment of pop figures, which I adore, but at the end of the day, like, there's very few of them now. Especially, I'm kind of at that point where it's like, well, yeah, it's just stuff. Like, yes, it has value, and a lot of the stuff has sentiment, and I enjoy it, but I also know that there's like 5 layers of dust on majority of these things.
Yeah.
So I think it's always, I mean, when you see or you kind of connect to things, um, from an emotional level, obviously, personal level, like, there's no detaching from that. I
Yeah.
think, the silliest thing I've ever been attached to. I mean, I could go other places, but yeah, like really other places. But the one that really speaks to me, that I think about it, is, I mean, and I've probably talked about it before, but I go to FanX and I do photo ops and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't get tongue tied with a lot of celebrities. It's only really happened twice, but probably the biggest one I was the most attached to. The picture, I have a picture of it on my phone, is me meeting Kevin Smith, and not
Yeah.
just because it was Kevin Smith. And for me, it hit on such a level. So one, I wasn't supposed to get that photo op because they were sold out. And after the
Yeah.
first day, they actually had opened up photo ops. So I was like, okay. And my girlfriend was like, I'm buying it. Just we'll figure out the dollars and cents later. I'm like, fair enough. So we were just supposed to do a group one.
Yeah.
That next day, and it was just me and Kevin Smith. And I remember reason why I have such an attachment to him and his works as a whole, but especially that moment was, as you go through life and you feel awkward, like the odd person out, when you watch things or listen to music or get connected to things that speak to you, it's like, oh my God, I'm not alone in this world. Like I there's a community out there, and it's, either small or vast. But at that time, like when the first Clerks came out, like, internet didn't exist. Like geeks and nerds didn't connect on the level we do now. But also a lot of his works got me through my time in Iraq and Afghanistan. Like we're literally quoting his movies as we're taking shelter.
Yeah.
Like, hey, how many explosions do you think that was? 37 in a row, like things like that. And the reason why I connected so much, so I'm walking in line for the photo op, just me and him, and the whole time I'm like, okay, I'm excited. Like I have this weird kind of calm, and it's trying to push emotions down because I don't want to be like weird about it. I ended up being weird about it, but as I'm getting up there, like I can feel the curtain drop, and I'm like, holy crap. I am literally going to have all my mascara running as I walk up to this guy. And, when you meet your heroes, especially in a very short term kind of situation, like, how do you say all you have to say?
Yeah.
So there's always an expectation for these things. You want them to go good. You don't want them to be weird. You don't want them to feel like, hey, I'm just here to collect your money. Like, I'll shake your hand and take a picture with you. So as I'm walking up, like, I'm holding tears in. And one of the assistants is like, it's okay. I'm like, you're right, it is. But somebody must be cutting onions. And after that group goes, and he turns and looks right at me and puts his arms out and goes, come here to give me a hug.
Yeah.
Niagara Falls, Frankie Angel. I bawled in that man's arms. And I just told him, I said, thank you for everything. Like I can't place it into words, but thank you, like, for everything.
Yeah.
And the reason why I find it kind of silly is because, I paid for that encounter. It's very short, but we never promised to meet our heroes. And when we do, there are times where we get a little disappointed. And we find ourselves in kind of that situation where it was like, that was it, huh? And that was a situation where I was like, everything I wanted it to be, it was. So when my girlfriend met me on the other side, she was already like, he's going to be emotional express or emotional, or he's going to be in an emotional state. I'll be the hot mess express. And sure enough, like I walked through to get my picture, and I love that picture. And she was like, so did you meet him? I'm like, uh-huh. She was like, was he a nice man? I'm like, oh, he was the nicest man. And, it literally took me like 10 minutes to recover. Like I had to sit. And I find it silly just from because for a lot of people, it's like, well, you paid to meet a stranger. And it's like, yeah, but everything that man did, or most of he did, like some of his movies, I'm like, like yoga hosers. But so much of what he did spoke to me and made me feel like I wasn't weird or I wasn't off. Like, when you grow up and you're into things like just not the norm or what's not considered the norm, you always feel like, well, nobody gets me and that's fine. And then when I first saw Clerks and like some of those conversations, I'm like, oh my God, is he reading my fan fiction? Like, what is this? So I find it silly just in the sense of, not because I hang on to it, I just hang on to it so much because it's what it's everything I wanted it to be and more. And there were so many things in our life that kind of define us. Like, I mean, I was there for my daughter's birth, and I was like, oh, okay, another kid. But then when the Rams won the Super Bowl, I'm like, and I started crying. But we all have these points where when we look back, a day from now, a year from now, we can't help but to have this stuff stand out. And every now and then, like when I see that picture, like around the apartment, I look at my girlfriend, I'm like, I met Kevin Smith and he gave me a hug and he made me feel like I belonged. So,
yeah.
but like I said, for some people, it's like you paid $200 to meet a stranger. And it's like, oh, one, it was my money. And two, like if it was a good experience, it was. His was like 90. His was at 200. But
yeah.
yeah, some people, I have tried to so many people to let them know, like with FanX, like how much of that stuff means to me. And it's like, and what does your bank account look like? I'm like, that's not the point.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't.
It's the little things that connect us in a bigger way.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, I've never really had the same kind of like aspirations for celebrity as something like that. Like, there's never really been a celebrity that is really has really communicated to me like that, that level. The closest I could think of that I would like legitimately get tongue-tied and like starstruck by, just because of how he's well, there's maybe two people. Because not only are they phenomenal actors, have great careers, but also because they've been universally seen as really good people in Hollywood as well. Tom Hanks and Keanu Reeves.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
If I was ever to be able to meet either of those people, I don't know if I'd be able to actually talk. Just because of the magnitude of their careers. And again, also just because of the kind of people they are.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah. You have a photo of meeting your hero, and I have rocks. So
hey, whatever connects us. Keanu, I didn't meet, but I saw. So last year, Dogstar came. His little dad rock band from like 20 years ago. They decided to do a mini tour, and they did the complex, and it definitely connects to what you just said. So he's the bass player, but he's Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
You know, I am an FBI agent, and I love Point Break. I have to admit that, as ridiculous as that movie is. But having said that, like he's the bass player, and at no point was it like him grabbing the microphone and like, you better like us because I'm Keanu Reeves. He looked like he had a good time. He shook hands with people. He talked to them very briefly, and it's like, oh, Keanu.
Yeah.
Very, very sweet, very kind. And it looked like he was in a happy place, you know, movies and schedules and stuff like that. He was just there to play the bass, sip his soda, hang out with people. And it was like, and that is why we love you.
Yeah. Yeah. Who
He's
figured that actually being like a decent person makes people like you? It's weird.
Yep.
Anyway.
He has, real quick, he has one of the best quotes. I know I'm dragging this on. He has one of the best quotes of all time. He was on Colbert and he was promoting John Wick 3. And he was asked by Colbert, what do you think happens when we die? And Keanu's response is literally something that could only come from Keanu Reeves. He goes, all I know is that the ones we love will miss us.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I melted. Like as soon as he said that, I was like, yeah, that was so emotional. Now I'm going to watch John Wick 3 while you kill the crap out of 300 people.
Speaking of which, I've been rewatching the John Wick movies because they're the first 3 of them are on Netflix now, and
nice.
They're still just as good. They really are. I'm kind of sad that they don't have John Wick 4 on there yet because I still think that's probably my favorite.
4 is great.
Anyways, if you want to hear about me gushing about the John Wick movies, listen to Wait You Haven't Seen with TV's Travis. I've talked about the last 3 of them.
There you go.
So, but yeah, definitely one of the guys I wouldn't know what to do if I ever got a chance to meet him. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our water cooler talk. Got a couple of articles to talk about.
You get that thing I sent you?
Yeah, I got it.
All right, let's go ahead and start with your article about Warner Brothers doing more stuff.
Yeah. So the current CEO, David Zaslav, and he's been kind of, and I've talked about it a little bit with like some changes in DC with James Gunn, and as far as the the popularity of some of the recent DC video games. I'm sorry, I couldn't say that with a straight face. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is like, no,
Yeah.
just no. And I have played it on PS5, and then I looked in the mirror right after playing for 3 minutes, and I'm like, this is why no one respects you. You just wasted 3 minutes on that.
Yeah.
But Warner Brothers is going through some pretty seismic changes across the board. David Zaslav, who is the current CEO, and that last name, Zaslav, I had to figure out a way to put it in a sentence. Like, he loves to say that he loves DC, and I'm like, I think he's lying his Zaslav. But having said that,
Yeah.
I worked on that for an hour.
Well
He
spent.
is starting. Thank you. He's starting to cancel some projects behind the scenes. Some not so behind the scenes, but he
Yeah.
is starting to um, kind of shut certain things down. And one of them, and this just makes him a bad man, he is working on, and not just scaling back, but kind of shutting down Adult Swim games. And they have such a place in my heart, and not just because I love Adult Swim. But there were so many phone games that they had made for so long that I mean, they were just the best time wasters and so much fun. And this is just another case of corporate businessman doing corporate businessman things. And um, it's just unfortunate to kind of watch these things go away over time. And once again, it's about trimming the fat, but also kind of on a side note, he's actually looking to sell Warner Brothers as an entire entity with DC and HBO to like Universal.
Okay.
So he's now kind of scaling some things back, focusing on like bigger projects because there's a Harry Potter series coming out on 2026 or in 2026 on Max. The DC film universe is now being, rebooted as well as relaunched.
Yeah.
And this is just an unfortunate side effect. There's a lot of things he's cut back on recently. And for those who love Adult Swim, like just the basics of what that channel has meant and what they've done show wise. Like, I learned about Mastodon, a band that I love from them. So many games that I've enjoyed from them. They did a great Samurai Jack game once, way back in the day.
Yeah.
And the Rick and Morty games were great. And that's all having the extension cord pulled out on it. And it's not just like what's going on with the scaling back and like the laying off in the video games. This is just another case of corporate greed takes away the good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, even looking through I mean, that's the thing is like the way they start the article is like they're tired of canceling completed projects before they're released. Now they're moving to burying games that have been out for years.
Yes.
So like another one is like Duck Game, and that's 2014. It's already been out for a decade, and now they're still like, nah, we're not gonna do it anymore.
Nope.
Yeah, and even like games that were from other studios that were acquired, they're in one of the paragraphs. Fist Puncher, made by indie game studio Team 2-Bit, they were asking them to simply transfer the game back to their Stream publisher account so the game can stay active, and they're just like, nah, we're not gonna do that.
Yep.
They just don't care about the games anymore.
No. And that's why it's
Yeah.
kind of hard to actually get behind Warner Brothers as well as DC. And I'm excited for the changes in the DC film universe, but this is all part of a ploy, and he has admitted that freely, that scaling back, more of the niche stuff and building up things that are going to sell and actually make Warner Brothers as an entity, Warner Brothers Discovery, just more appealing to buy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, good stuff go bad because live action freaking Scrooge McDuck, but not even endearing.
Yeah.
Got to swim in his money bin.
Yeah. Again, corporate's going to corporate.
Yep.
We honestly shouldn't be surprised. Disappointed, but not surprised.
Yeah, makes me sad because so many things that I still enjoy even now as a product of the games and just what Adult Swim means for like us goofy adults, where it's like, you do stuff that I think of, like,
yeah, that was like my teenage years. So I still remember, it was Adult Swim and Toonami were really big when I was growing up.
Toonami, yeah.
Oh, I mean, that's how I was introduced to like Dragon Ball Z and a bunch of other anime series and stuff like that. I think even Cowboy Bebop at the time was on there for a while.
Yes.
That's still fantastic. But yeah, I mean, that was a big part of my childhood and teenage years and stuff like that. So to see it getting the game specifically, I mean, I think Adult Swim and Toonami have kind of been out of the limelight for a while now, but yeah, to see even that more of a hit to them, just like, okay, now you don't have the shows, and also you're not going to get the games anymore because corporate.
And just cutting it off at the knees, like it's not even like a send off. Vertigo Comics was the same way. That broke my heart. He didn't have a hand in that, but it's one of those things where the niche stuff that we really connect to sooner or later becomes just a piece of people working things to just divide up their money, sell what they sell, and just make a profit. And then until that profit runs out, it's like, well, no one cares. Why should I? But I can save money in the process. So breaks my heart a little. Me, positive articles, but nothing about Ubisoft. Sorry.
Yeah, we'll get back to it. Don't worry. I'm sure they'll
absolutely
shit the bed some other way. All right.
What they do.
Yeah. That should be their tagline. Ubisoft, shitting the bed since whatever they discovered. Anyway. Whatever. So let's go ahead and get into my article. Getting a little bit back into Helldivers. It's still a very popular game. It's still a lot of fun to play. The only reason why I don't play more often is because I don't have a lot of other friends that can play at the same time. Even playing with randos is usually pretty good. But this one specifically about the intro cinematic with the one dude who witnesses his family getting murdered by a bug and then becomes a Helldiver. He's like the spokesperson for the Helldivers, the whole opening cinematic. It's an actor named Craig Lee Thomas, and they actually have used his likeness for that model. It is a 3D computer-generated model, but they used his likeness, his scans for it. And I just love when actors and these people love the projects they're part of. And the headline for this article is, I cannot get enough of this game. And he's been playing it nonstop. And I love that when they're so enthusiastic about the product they're in that they love doing it. And honestly, that's a lot of it. It's just him explaining like the different parts of the game that he really loves. He likes facing the automatons and stuff, the bugs. I kind of agree. I prefer the automatons versus the bugs myself, because the bugs just rush you. And it's like you just get swarmed literally by them. Whereas the automatons, they usually kind of stay at a distance for the most part. And you have time to try to pick them off and all that jazz. And I just don't like bugs in general, like real life or fake. But also that his favorite gun, he has a soft spot for the Liberator Penetrator, which is a gun I just got, and it actually is really good. And it reminds him of the Halo 3 days with the battle rifle. It's like, because it has that 3-shot burst. It's really nice, actually. And but yeah, I mean, there's not really a whole lot about this article other than I think it's hilarious and awesome that he loves the product that he's a part of.
That's always nice, and it never seems to be the case.
Yeah.
I mean, and I love the fact that people get excited about the things they do, because sooner or later, like with actors or performers and stuff, they get kind of tired of stuff, and it kind of weighs on them. And it's very much like, especially when people tend to kind of look back or look at the final product even more so because it's so fresh, it's like, what was I doing? Like,
Yeah.
Perfect examples like Madam Web, like Dakota Johnson. She was like, yeah, Sony, thanks. I hate my life. And like half the internet hates me now. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you've got to stand by your works in some ways. I mean, I'm sure the house she got with what she was paid is really nice.
Yeah.
And I'm sure she'll take home a bunch of Razzies for that movie, but
Yeah. I mean, there's that as well. Like because she was describing how when they first pitched it to her, it was supposed to be completely different. That was supposed to be some kind of like almost time travel type situation where like the main bad guy was trying to kill Peter Parker's mother or something like that, so that
yes,
Spider-Man wouldn't be born. And like this
yes,
whole time aspect to it, like that's the idea they pitched to her, and then by the time
yes,
they actually got to the final movie, it was completely different.
yes.
But yeah, like
And she thought she was going to be a part of the actual MCU,
yeah,
not Sony's wannabe MCU.
yeah. Oh, yet another Spider-Man movie that doesn't have Spider-Man in it. But like other examples of this, as weird as it is, and it's probably somewhat sanitized because it's on Disney Plus. For those who don't know, I have 3 young girls, and because I have 3 young girls, we are very familiar with both Frozen movies. And they, I mean, whatever it is, but
Indeed.
yeah, they had an actual like documentary on Disney Plus about the production of Frozen 2 and how it's like it's the only theatrical release of a direct sequel of a Disney movie, or a Disney animated movie, I should say. And so they had this whole documentary, and say what you will about the movie, about the whole Frozen phenomenon in general. It was actually kind of nice because all of them on the cast were super excited to be part of it. Not just for the money, but it's like they were really enjoying the whole process of being able to portray these characters. And that's heartening. I like that. I like when people are like
Agreed.
so enthusiastic about their projects. And again, that's all this to say that's what this article is about, and I thought it was cool.
Absolutely. It's just nice when, because every now and then, like you look at certain movies and like I would say, a lot of these people they look back at things and they were like, what was I thinking? But also, I think you have to find a way, regardless of taking a job for whatever reason, at that level or like whatever we do, it is one of those things where you have to find a way to really connect to it. And some of that should come from like enjoyment as opposed to, oh, here we go. I never feel that way doing this and doing other shows. I've been away due to like work stuff, but it is one of those things where it's like, I get giddy. There's never been a point where it's like, oh man, I got to come up with something to say in the beginning that might be funny, but probably won't because Sean needs a soundbite. Oh, but like,
yeah. I mean, yeah. Agreed.
Yep. Hey, if it's not fun, then what's the point?
Exactly. I mean,
that's a bumper sticker.
Yeah, I could make a t-shirt out of that.
Indeed.
I could. All right. Well, before we get back to work, I'd like to mention our Patreon. Patreon.com/PTGcast. If you like what you're hearing and like to help us out with our paychecks a little bit each month, you can go there. Yeah, words. You can help us out with that over at patreon.com/PTGcast. Get some benefits there, pre-show, post-show content for our employee levels and up. And get mentioned on the show. Like I said, helps us out, helps me upgrade my equipment and all that other jazz. So we'd really appreciate it.
And it makes Steve Rogers happy.
Yes.
Cat must have tribute.
Yes. Patreon. Wow. Why can words not make good mouth out of? Patreon.
Speak words, I say things, I talk.
Patreon.com/PTGcast. With that, let's go ahead and get back to work.
Morning break is over. Morning break is over.
So this is going to be our final game of this month for our early access theme that we've been going with, and it's one that's actually taken quite a bit of my attention over the last couple of days, and it's actually really a lot of fun. We're going to be talking about Deep Rock Galactic Survivor. And yes, we have talked about Deep Rock Galactic before. They are two separate games. This is very much different. This is developed by Fun Day Games and published by Ghost Ship Publishing. It is currently $9.99 for Windows via Steam. So that's the only place you can find it currently. I don't know if they have any plans for going to other consoles or anything like that. It is in early access. It should be fully released at some point this year. I think they said that their plan was 6 months to a year in early access. I think was what I read. But so in theory, it should be coming out sometime this year, unless something gets delayed. But it is a Deep Rock Galactic themed Survivor-like. So, anyone who's familiar with the term Survivor-like from Vampire Survivors, it's basically a Deep Rock Galactic version of that. And it's actually pretty faithful in a lot of elements, but it still has that Deep Rock Galactic theme to it. Players control one of the dwarves as they progress through increasingly difficult levels of this deep dive. So one thing that is different for this compared to a lot of other Survivor-likes is there's multiple levels. There are 5 levels in a single run, a single dive. And the last one contains this pretty sizable boss fight. Now, since it is early access, there's only pretty much one mode, which is this 5 levels of progressing difficulty to defeat a dreadnought. One thing I would like to see maybe sometime on the road is kind of mix that up. Maybe you have a different final boss. I think the mechanical caretaker could be a pretty good boss. The thing is, it would be stationary, but it could really be a pretty cool bullet hell type situation with that.
Sure.
Having to maneuver your dwarf onto the specific platforms to, make it vulnerable and try to hit certain spots and everything like that. But I think that'd be another cool one. Again, because it's early access, they only have this one mode. There's 3 biomes, and it's not complete. That being said, the gameplay in it is actually very tight from what I've played. I've played about 7 hours of it since last night, which is quite a bit for 2 days of playing it, and I'm really enjoying it. But the basic gameplay, you're going through these different levels based on the biome. And what's cool is you see this timer on the top. And there's little icons on this timer as it's filling up, and those indicate when certain events are going to take place. So it's there's one icon that has, okay, there's going to be a swarm here. So there's going to be a big uptick in the number of enemies. So you better get prepared for it, and try to get your levels in, try to get your weapons ready and stuff like that. There's one that shows a supply drop. So it's going to drop this beacon in a specific location. You have to try to clear out that area from whatever rocks are in the area, and then stay in that area for a few seconds. It'll drop a supply drop, which gives you an artifact, which artifacts are universal buffs for whoever you're playing as. So an example of one is called the Red Sugar Cube, where anytime you heal using red sugar in the level, it also increases your max health by 2 points. So, and those are all universal. They're unlocked pretty much just by advancing in level or doing certain milestones, kind of similar to Deep Rock Galactic, actually. And then it also, at the very end of this timer, is the elite of that level is going to become active and start chasing you around. Once you defeat that elite, the level ends, and you have 30 seconds to get to the dropship to go to the next level. So it can happen, it can end pretty suddenly if you're not paying attention. You're trying to do something else, like gather that last little bit of materials or minerals, and then all of a sudden the elite gets killed out of nowhere. And you're just oh crap, I gotta make my way back to the dropship. But one thing that is cool is, even though there's a bunch of rocks around, you can dig through the rocks, which actually adds a big strategic element to this game, because then it's okay, I'm blocked this way, they're coming from this other direction, but they're all circling around to try to get to behind you. You can just dig through the rocks and come up behind them or just escape and everything. So it does have that kind of cool, kind of like line of sight type mechanics with that. And I mentioned the mining. There's different materials different minerals you can gather during the game, during each level. And like gold and nitra are used for upgrading either your basic stats or your weapons directly in between the levels, in between for that dive. So you collect it, you complete that first level, as you're going to the next level, it brings up a list of options. It's like, okay, I can increase my max health over here. I can use the gold to increase my universal reload speed, and then I can use the nitra to increase the fire rate of this weapon, and so on and so forth. There's a couple of examples of the kinds of upgrades you can get. All the other minerals, because they have all the minerals in here, all the other minerals are used to, when you're outside of the dive in the main menu, you can upgrade just universal upgrades. Like, okay, I increase the percentage of experience I gain. And that's just a passive permanent buff to any future runs. So one thing I like about that is there's, I think there's like 12 different upgrades you can get, from like damage, fire rate, reload time, all these movement speed, all of these different kinds of upgrades. And two of them are associated with each kind of mineral. So if you're targeting a specific upgrade, you can target that kind of mineral and know exactly what you're getting. Which I think is kind of nice, because then it's like, well, I don't really care about this stat. I don't want to waste my time gathering this mineral when I can just try to focus on the one mineral that I want to use for my upgrades. I like that element, and it can be a factor, especially when you got a swarm of things trying to chase you, and you have to try to decide, okay, do I want to gather this and risk getting hit, or do I want to just bypass it? So,
right.
Also, as players level up during the dives, they can gain upgrades and weapons. Like I was mentioning, like some of the examples for weapons are like fire rate or reload speed or just raw damage or things like that. And but there's specific levels. You start off with one weapon. At levels 5, 15, and 25, you gain another weapon. And all of these weapons, if whoever is familiar with the original Vampire Survivors, all of these weapons have different functionalities to them. So, for example, you start off with the Scout. The deep core rifle is their first weapon. It's just a weapon that fires rapidly towards whatever enemy's closest. It doesn't matter what direction you're going. It just targets whatever's closest. But then one of the next weapons they get is an SMG that just fires specifically in a fixed pattern in 4 directions. So it really depends on what you're trying to go for. Like what's your starting weapon, what kind of build you want to go with, and so on. So or even just what weapons you have access to eventually is a factor. But you can get up to 4 weapons equipped at one time, and they all function differently and do different things. All the other levels, you gain the choice of 3 different upgrades. They can either be upgrades to your current weapon, or current weapons, I should say, or some other of the general stats. Like I mentioned, max health, movement speed, pickup radius. All those are factored in as well. Now, weapons can be upgraded indefinitely. There's no limit to because each time you get an upgrade for your weapon, it increases the level of the weapon. And there actually are upgrades that don't actually increase any stats, but the level. Right. Which the reason why that's important is because when you upgrade a weapon to level 6, 12, or 18, you get an overclock. Just like they have in regular Deep Rock Galactic. And these overclocks can completely change the functionality of the weapon, or they have much greater stat changes. One of them I remember is, I don't remember the name of it, but there's an overclock that just makes it so that your reload speed and your fire rate are both increased by 25%. So you can reload faster, it fires faster, which is a very big boost and you can only get that kind of boost out of an overclock. But there's other ones that are just like, yeah, it completely changes the kind of damage it does. Instead of doing kinetic damage, which is bullet damage or anything, yeah, we're gonna make it do fire instead, which completely changes how the weapon functions. Completely changes the kind of upgrades you're going to try to go for with that weapon. So it's really interesting. You can get like usually that last overclock is very powerful. Like I just earlier today unlocked the engineer, and like I got the overclock. The starting engineer, his main thing is his turrets. If you stop moving for a second, he'll drop turrets on the ground. And like some of the overclocks, one of the first ones you can get is it gives them tank treads. So instead of being stationary, they actually follow you around, which I think is great. And then like another one is you can increase the number of charges. And then the last one was it increases it by 3 charges. So you can get like 6 of these turrets following you around throughout the entire level. It actually is very powerful. So yeah, usually those last overclocks are very powerful. So it does actually help to kind of focus on a specific weapon. And by focusing on that specific weapon, you can get them to this high level and kind of completely change the way you play. And then kind of use the rest of the weapons as kind of support or secondary. The one caveat is before a new weapon can be overclocked, before you can get any overclocks for these new weapons, they must first be upgraded to level 12 on a run, and then all future runs, you unlock the ability to overclock them. So that's the basic functionality of how the runs go. I have a couple more guests on my screen again. The other 2 budgies that we have. For if you want to know about the third budgie my wife got, you have to watch our pre-show. But
Birdie.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. So many pets. But just like in the original Deep Rock Galactic, there's 4 classes. They each have their own kind of play styles and different stats, and then they have different abilities and different pools of weapons. The first concern you might have when hearing, oh, there's only 4 classes, all these other Survivors likes have, Vampire Survivors itself has like I don't know how many dozens of different classes now, different characters you can choose from. You might think it's like, okay, 4 classes seems very restricting. Within each one of those 4 classes, each class has 3 mods, which changes their basic functionality and changes their starting weapon. So, for example, the Scout is the one you start off with. The Classic Scout starts with the Deep Core Rifle and gets a 5% chance to dodge attacks, and I think a little bit increased health, I think is what it gets. But the next one that you unlock, I think at level like 9 of Scout, I think it might be 9 or 12, I don't remember. It unlocks the Recon Scout. Recon Scouts have a 25% chance to dodge, and when they dodge, they get increased reload speed and movement speed, and their starting weapon is the SMG that fires in 4 directions. So functionally, very different from the Classic Scout. I haven't unlocked the 3rd one yet, but it's, I believe, Sharpshooter is what it's labeled as, which means it probably starts off with the M100 Classic, which is the like sniper-like rifle. So it's very powerful single shots, but it's not going to be able to hit a whole lot of targets. And that's going to be different. So in essence, you actually have like 12 different ways to play the game just with the characters. And each of these characters, each of these mods for each of the characters function completely differently. And I think that was a very good way of doing it. Because then it's like, okay, I kind of got the basics of this class. Let's go into the next mod and see how, how it kind of functions differently with that. I'm really surprised, honestly, that this is still an early access game because everything feels complete. Everything feels really solid in this. Like the first couple times I went in with the scout, I had a hard time with it. It wasn't the game's fault though. It was just it. I'm just starting out. I don't have any of the upgrades. I had to unlock a bunch of weapons still. I didn't have all the options available, and I died a bunch of times. And then finally, as a scout, I went through the first hazard level, completed it, finally beat the final dreadnought, and started to get kind of the hang of it. So, and then later on, you can do increasingly more difficult runs later on. Once you unlock certain, you can unlock higher hazard levels. I haven't gotten into those yet because I'm still like I still need to master the hazard level 1 first.
Right.
But overall, I think this is a very, this is to me is a very good Survivor-like. I mean, it's one of the first ones that's really captured my attention since Vampire Survivors. Primarily because it does still have that aesthetic from Deep Rock Galactic. It has a lot of the voice lines from the guy in control, telling you, "Hey, you got a swarm on the way" and everything. It's very tight.
Yeah.
And I still don't know like what other features they're going to be adding, but they're definitely going to be adding more stuff, and I'm just eager to see what they're adding to it. I know they're probably going to be adding more biomes because they only have 3 available right now, and I think in baseline Deep Rock Galactic there's like 9, something like that. So it's gonna be interesting to see what biomes they add. Whether or not they're going to add more weapons. I can see them adding more weapons. I can see them adding more mods for the classes, more artifacts, and just balancing because some of the classes like the engineer. Now, granted, the engineer is the latest one I played, and it has the benefit of all the upgrades and stuff that I've unlocked. But it only took me, I think, 2 or 3 runs to finally beat the dreadnought. Playing as the scout when I was first starting off, it probably took like a dozen or more to finally beat the dreadnought at the end. And with the gunner, which was the second one I unlocked, that still took like I think 5 or 6 runs. So I don't know. It's not really sure what else to say about it. I really enjoy it. It's actually kind of pulled me away from Satisfactory and Helldivers at the moment. And I wasn't expecting it to have that much of a draw for me. But the gameplay is tight. The aesthetics are definitely on point with Deep Rock Galactic, and I'm really enjoying it.
So for me, and finally getting back into the show, and looking at this, and then I was like, oh, okay. So start looking into it, and kind of got a crash course in playing both because it was like, oh, there's a first one. Yeah. So I went and played that, and all I could think to myself, like the original. I mean, first of all, I love the title, Deep Rock Galactic, and I love the danger, darkness, dwarves. Yeah. And so I had it for the PS5, and I was like, yeah, they should have a spin-off for this game. Oh, yeah, there it is, Survivor. And like the original game is one of those where, and not just from the shooter aspect, but we talk in great length about like the immersiveness, and that's why the games that we love really pull us in. So like the first one, the original, I was like, so you took the Lord of the Rings dwarves and gave them guns.
Pretty much.
Go on. Yeah. And because they've done such a great job with both games and building a world and where you relate to it from, the standpoint of a first person shooter as well as this style of game, but also like what they create is like, okay, I can get into that. So fast forward to this one, and I think you really hit it on the head. I really enjoyed it. I messed around with it. I'm definitely not very good at it.
Yeah.
But it does feel tight, complete, and very just functional for everything it has to, to offer. So
Yeah.
I was kind of like you when you just mentioned that. It was like, oh, there's more. Okay. And
Yeah.
it kind of just makes me wonder. I mean, of course, DLCs, games have all types of expansions, but especially where this is kind of gone, like just in the short amount of time I've played it, everything just seems to be thought out well, executed well. So when you think about, them putting out there like, oh yeah, we're going to expand stuff and put more, and it's like, more? Like, let me
Yeah.
get this straight. So you gave me a great burger and now you want to supersize it.
Yeah. I mean,
If you insist.
yeah, I mean, it's surprising how tight the game is already
Mhm.
at this level, because it, like I said, it's still early access. They're still working on things. I'm just really eager to see. Like, I'm content with the game as is. At
Yeah.
least currently, because I've been already playing for, like, I think I said something like 7 hours or so, something like that. I have not even really gotten even into the second biome. I've still only been doing hazard level 1, and there's up to hazard level 5. Uh,
Yeah.
so there's so much content in this already. It's going to be really interesting to see how they expand on it. Again, probably more than likely at this point, just adding more biomes, which will
Right.
change how the levels look, how the different kinds of enemies you have to face, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's a solid game already. I'm really looking forward to where they end up with it.
Yeah. This is a trip. This is something, I mean, just as a whole, as far as the universe itself. And it's kind of great because I think we all know that, when creators make something that they get behind and they do so well, like it shows. And
Yeah,
it shows in both games. Obviously, both games are, different as far as like, how they're set up, but the setup is still there. The
yeah,
characters, the world itself, um what you've kind of become accustomed to with the first game, and it's kind of a little bit of, well, if you like that, you'll
yeah,
love this. And this is definitely in that world. And it begs two questions. One, we already touched on, which of course is, what do you mean you're going to do more? Like, wait, this isn't finished?
yeah,
Like, what? And then two, it's like, I think it kind of gives way as, with the games being different, but of course companions, because the way the worlds are set up, you kind of can't help but to go, okay, so what's the third game going to be? Because there
yeah,
is so much that's set up there so well and so tightly done, and just done extremely well, executed well. It just gives way to, well, what are they going to do next? So
yeah. And
yeah,
yeah, and they're already over 1 million copies sold on Steam.
nice
Which is, yeah,
and
really,
deservingly so.
yeah. This is definitely going to be on my, like, pretty regular rotation of games I want to play. And as far as the part-time gamer aspect of it, you can do a run in like 20 minutes. They're because they're timed to a degree. It kind of lends itself to faster play times. So
Yep.
it's a single player experience as well, so you don't have to worry about trying to drop in with another person or anything like that. The nice thing is, because it's single player, you can pause it. So
Yep.
this has been going to be on my rotation of games I can play when I have to take care of kids, because it's like, if I need to go upstairs, I can just pause it, go up there, come back very easily. And yeah, it's quick play. It's very enjoyable, very
Absolutely.
concentrated fun. Not too dissimilar from the original
Oh,
Vampire Survivors.
I like that.
Yeah,
Concentrated fun.
yeah,
Only in the frozen food section.
fun from Concentrate. Uh, but yeah, again, it's yeah, it's very well done.
Yep. Absolutely. It's and you touched on it as well. Like, what little I got to, play it, I enjoyed it. But what was so great is it was very brisk. Like, with the
Yeah,
timing and the way it's done. Like, I mean, you can get a lot of enjoyment out of it in a very short sitting.
Yeah. And what's
So,
another thing that's impressive about it is the fact that it's only $10. And it's like
yep.
the presentation, the mechanics, and all this stuff, while not AAA level. I mean, look at the original Vampire Survivors. It had like almost NES level graphics. Uh, and it was phenomenal in just in its gameplay. So and this being only $10 and having the presentation that it does and the content that it does is very impressive. So yeah, just overall very impressed with the game so far. Looking forward to where they go forward with this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, everyone, thank you for listening. If you like what you've heard and you'd like to help us out, you can give us a review over on Apple Podcasts. You can follow my Twitch and or my YouTube channels for our live recordings, Sunday nights starting at 9:15 Eastern Time. Or you can become one of our patrons over at patreon.com/ptgcast. You can go there and help us with our paychecks each month. And I would like to thank our board member, Stephanie Hurst. Thank you for supporting us so well. We'd really do appreciate it. If you'd like to contact us, you can with our email, parttimegamers.cast@gmail.com, or you can join our Discord channel. The invite link is on my website. It is in the show notes. You know, it's all over the place. So find it, and you can join our Discord channel and join some like-minded adults trying to play games on full-time lives. Yeah. Everyone, thank you for listening. Join us next week. We are going not be talking about a game. We're going to be having our monthly game night next week. We're going to be going back to Stick Fight. Had a good time with that the first time we tried it. It's low barrier to entry and just was concentrated hilarity. So we're going to get back into that one. And then we're going to be taking the following week off because it's going to be Easter Sunday. And then starting back up in April, we're going to be talking about more games. We haven't decided on what we're going to be talking about yet, but we will before then, and we'll tell everyone else at that point. All right, I'm Sean. You can find the show and the rest of my work and links to my socials, including our Discord channel, my Twitch and YouTube channels, and the link to the Apple Podcast listing using the link bit.ly/CI Productions. Go up to the right-hand corner. It has all those things linked right up there. It's the easiest way to direct you. You can find Ember's work over at 9of12.com, NINEOF12.com, including her newest show, Tipple Theory, which just ended their first season. So be interesting to see where they go from there. All right, Theory, where can people find you around the internet?
Mannequinsgonewild.com. Actually, don't look that up. I have no clue where that might lead you. Like, that would be a different kind of rabbit hole.
Yeah, keep safe search on. Just in case.
Yeah, I mean, just in case it's like, oh, that sounds cute and funny, and then it ends up being like the end of Requiem for a Dream. It's like, oh my god, the world's terrible. Y'all can find me at Rabbit in Red, which is going to start kicking off again. We had an episode a couple weeks ago. We're going to start getting into a sooner rotation. In theory, this Thursday, but the new Ghostbusters is coming out, so yeah, I might have something to do.
Yeah.
Like walking with a proton pack, be like, and I'm also back on Swell once again, and it's that one weirdo. And because some things have changed in my life, and I'm going to be father of the bride in a couple of months, I will not be at Level Up as I had hoped, but I will be back at FanX doing 2 panels in September.
Nice.
Yep.
All right, everyone. Until next time, we are the Part-Time Gamers clocking out.